Welcome to the Executive Podcast. I'm Rachel, the editor of the Executive magazine, and on today's episode, we're talking to Jake Bernardi about his bold leap from working in a large financial firm to starting his own financial advice company. He shares the risks he took, the challenges of building a brand while under a non-compete clause, and how he made his vision a reality. Jake also gives us a behind-the-scenes look at what makes financial planning juicy, and he's got some great advice for anyone looking to enter the industry and a passionate message for the next generation of financial planners. So hi Jake, welcome to the Executive Podcast. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. Let me just start by asking, what is your role and what is it that 57 North Financial Planning does?
So I am a director and financial planner at 57 North Financial Planning, and we provide an independent, whole-of-market, holistic financial planning service.
Okay, and is that to a variety of clients or?
Yeah, it's to a variety of clients, usually across the north of Scotland, but we're not restricted to that. But certainly our location is important to us. We very much believe in having a local presence and having a presence amongst the community. So yeah, the closer to home, sometimes the better. But we'll go far and wide if we need to.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's quite a new business, isn't it?
Yeah, so we started the business in February last year. It's been a whirlwind. The 16 months have gone past very, very quickly. It's been great. It's been everything we could have hoped it would be and more. Lots of learning along the way, but also a lot of gratification for the loyalty and, I suppose, desire that clients have shown to want to work with us.
And what led you, because you're a director and you've got Dan Murdoch as well, is that correct?
Dan and Jill, yeah.
And what led you to start this?
The main reason that we wanted to start 57 North Financial Planning was because we wanted to get back to the way that we wanted to deal with our clients, essentially. When we first, and this is the case for Dan, Jill and myself, when we first started in financial services and financial planning, we worked for a local independent firm. That firm was then sold to a larger national firm, which was then sold to a larger multinational. And as you'll see each step along the way, you're just getting bigger and bigger. And I definitely am not negative on that. You know, I'm actually quite thankful that we had the experience and exposure of those different sizes, because it certainly helped me in my development and learning. But essentially, the last move was kind of a bit of a final straw for us, because if we didn't feel we were going to be in a position where we could look our clients in the eyes and say that we were providing advice based on what we genuinely believe was in their best interests, not the best interests of the company that we were working for, that's where it led to us going, we need to do something different. So that was kind of where the idea came from.
And how did you take that risk then? I guess going from probably what was a monthly salary, you know, you've got that reassurance that you've got a job, to then jumping ship. How was that?
Yeah, I mean, there's risk. There was risk involved. There's no doubt about that. The way we looked at things was that we maybe felt there was equal risk staying where we were. Maybe that wasn't truly the case, but what I'm getting at is we live in a small place, as we've already alluded to, and that's great. That community is really important. Good news, therefore, spreads quickly, but bad news spreads much quicker. And from our point of view, if we had no longer felt we were doing what was right for the client, and that then became evident, and the clients would find that, then I think we would have probably been in a position where we might have started to lose some clients anyway. And so, yes, there was risk, but it felt like the right thing to do at the time. And yeah, we've not looked back since.
Amazing. Had you all worked at the same company and then decided to just kind of leave together?
That was pretty much it. So, you know, we have to be careful. We had to respect the position of our former employer. And we did that. But it did mean that there was a process that we had to go through. The other thing as well is we work in a heavily regulated environment. Financial services is very heavily regulated. So for all the right reasons, it's about making sure that consumers are protected. But because of that, it's not just like you can leave one day and then set something up the next. So there were definitely, you know, some hurdles and hoops, but it was just always about, as challenging as they became at points, just remembering why we did it in the first place. And it was clients. So we knew that over time, we hoped that it would work out the way we wanted. And thankfully, that's been the case.
And how did you decide on the name?
Yeah, so 57 North is the latitude to where Inverness falls on the map. And for us, you'll see with the logo, the compass that's in the logo, ultimately what we wanted it to try and represent was the journey that we had been on as individuals and as a team, that after going through a few changes, what we were doing was coming or navigating back to what we originally were. So, it puts us on the map somewhere. It gives us where our home is, if you will. It doesn't restrict us to just Inverness because, as I say, our clients are across the whole of Scotland and the islands as well. But yeah, that's where the name came from. A kind of representation of where we are, but also the journey we had been on. And it represents the fact that when we're working with our clients, we very much view it as a journey for hopefully a very long time with them as well. No matter what stage the client comes to see us to begin with, we hope to be working with them for the long term. And so there's a representation of the journey that they'll go on as well.
Yeah, so there's lots of elements to that branding there.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah. And how have you got your branding out? Because I believe you had a non-compete clause to begin with. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So how did you get your branding out there? How were you able to let people know what you were doing?
Yeah, so it was, just being careful. We didn't want to shoot ourselves in the foot and stop ourselves before we even got started. So it was just respecting the position that we were in, and then finding the time at which point it was okay to then start to try and get the name out there and really get the message of why and what we were doing.
And we've talked about the business, and I just wanted to know a bit more personally about you. How did you end up into this industry? What was your journey into it?
Yeah, so my journey, I stumbled upon financial planning. I think most people do when they come in, although I would say that there definitely seems to be a wider variety and some more diversification in terms of who is coming into the profession, because it is largely unknown, particularly through school and then further education. There isn't a degree in financial planning. So I do think it's one of life's best kept secrets from a career perspective. But for me, I left school. I did an apprenticeship in civil engineering, of all things. Predominantly land surveying and setting out engineering was the main areas I focused on. I was working with a local business, really enjoyed my time there. But I think for me, I knew that being with people and working within a team or working with others was what was really important to me. It's where I think I thrive most. So the land surveying maybe felt quite opposite to that, quite reclusive, isolated out by yourself. So I had made a decision that I wanted to move away from that in pursuit of something different. I actually first looked at accountancy, and then an opportunity came up within a local firm, and haven't looked back since. So February 2017, and it feels like just yesterday.
Yeah, and here you are now, director of a financial planning business.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey, quite the curve, but I've been very fortunate to have been surrounded by great people along the way, and I've learned a lot, both consciously and subconsciously. So yeah, very fortunate.
And you went and got that job at a local firm. We talked about that you need accreditation for doing what you do. So were they able to put you through your training? Yeah.
So I was very fortunate. The training was provided and ultimately funded. It was a combination of, in the books, you've got to get your qualifications, your diploma, and then working towards advanced diploma, chartered status. But I think a lot of the learning comes from on the job. It's actually, I think, a profession that really leans itself well to a modern apprenticeship, because you can do the books at the same time that you're working within the workplace, and you can directly correlate what you're reading to how that then is applied in real life. And for me, a massive part of what we do is the relationship that we have with our clients. Our business is, the foundation of our business is trust. Our clients need to feel they can trust us. I often feel that, it's a complex environment we work within, and trust is the bridge that basically allows clients to fill that gap in knowledge or experience that they might have. Because if it's not something you sit and look at every day, it is complex. So I think that on-the-job experience was essential, the combination of the two. There are many different routes you can go down from an exam perspective. It's just finding what the right one for you is. But, certainly with 57 North, we really want to encourage next generation of talent coming through. And I know that sounds quite funny given I'm sitting here and I'm only 28 in December, but ultimately there's a lot of opportunity in this profession because it's an aging population of professionals. You go to most seminars and conferences and events, you're not looking around at many people who are less than late 40s, early 50s. So getting that next generation of talent through is essential. So it's definitely something that we're looking to try and promote within 57 North as and when the opportunity arrives.
Yeah, for the Highlands as well, providing new opportunities for local young people as well. We've got a big drive to be able to allow people to stay here. And those opportunities sounds like something you're wanting to give people. And I guess then, what is exciting about being in financial planning? If you want to attract people in, what makes it juicy?
Honestly, I think the best thing about our job is the genuine difference we can make to people and their lives. The amount of times that you have a client that comes into you for their first meeting, and even if this client doesn't become an ongoing client thereafter, and all the information is just an opportunity for us to pass on some knowledge and guidance as to the situation they're in and what they need to be looking at, because our first meeting is always at our expense. It's our time to get to know the client and their situation in more depth. It's their time to get to know us in more depth. And quite often these meetings will end in a situation where we maybe don't feel an ongoing financial planning relationship would add value to the situation they're in. But the worst situation they're going to have is that they leave the room in a more informed position than they came into the room. So the amount of times you go into meetings with clients and you can just see and feel the burden that they feel, they have concerns, they have worries. It's a daunting world out there from a financial sense. And when they leave the room, you can just see they feel more relaxed, more at ease because of what you've been able to do for them. So we get to develop relationships with people that are, really deep and meaningful. I often think you have to give a little to be able to expect something back. And, when you've been working with clients for a while, you don't view them as clients as such. There obviously has that professional integrity has to remain throughout, but they become more like friends because you get to know more about them, they get to know more about you, and I just find the whole thing really empowering.
Yeah, and I guess finance is one of life's biggest stresses for people, and for you to be able to provide that opportunity for them to talk, have somebody to counsel them must make such a difference.
Totally, and quite often being a counsellor is what we can be in a financial sense. It's taking it's really getting to the root of why people do what they do. People go to work for a reason. It might be their family. It might be in an effort to be able to retire early and sail around the world. Whatever it is, people have purpose. It's trying to help them understand if they don't know what that purpose is, and then figure out what they fear, what do they feel stopping them from being able to do that, why isn't it a reality, and then ultimately putting a plan together to try and make sure that they don't have that fears or concerns, because by making some tangible changes and differences, you can see some quite amazing outcomes thereafter.
Yeah. And what's the biggest mistake that people make with their finances? Or the biggest issue? Mine's is spending too much money on coffee and just probably not looking at my bank account until I realise I've got nothing.
That's a good question. The thing that people can do is start earlier. And even if they think it's really insignificant at the time, like if it's £20 a week that someone can save and they think, well, what's that going to do? One thing is for sure, it's not going to put you in a worse position if you do it than if you don't. And if you start early enough, you don't need to save a lot, or you don't need to invest a lot if you have that time horizon, because ultimately, over time, without getting too technical, the power of compound interest will do that for you. So I think most people we meet with in nowhere near as bad a position as they thought they were when they first come in. Once it's actually broken down and they can start to see the wood from the trees, because nobody really sits and writes these things down. It just happens around you. You go to work, you get your pay, your expenses are your expenses, your bills are your bills, and you kind of, everyone just muddles on. And once it's actually written down, you can start to see, as I say, some tangible changes that can be made that can make quite a big difference. And if you do that earlier, then you don't need to do as much than if you start later.
So to access financial planning from yourselves, would someone need to have a certain amount of money, or is there kind of like a cutoff for how you can like, can you help me who, you know, spends much more than she probably earns thanks to an overdraft, you know, like, and then it's just like, oh dear, you know, or do you need to have a certain amount of money to be able to help?
It's something that I wouldn't say I struggle with, but it's definitely an area of focus, because I do feel there is an advice gap that exists, and I do feel that it should be our responsibility as a profession to try and help bridge that advice gap. The difficulty is, it shouldn't be about how much money someone has. It should be about how much value you can add. But ultimately, in a world where we do exist as a commercial enterprise, we have our minimum costs that we know it will cost us to work or service a client. And if we were to then impose what that minimum fee would be for us just to be able to remain afloat, for clients who maybe have less, it ends up being an awful lot more. And it's whether or not that can be justified, because all we're ever going to feel like is we're maybe, our fees are then holding back what they should be able to do with that money otherwise. So it's difficult. You know, we do know that we set out our proposition to deal with the right type of client. The reason that the minimum amounts can sometimes come in is it's not because it's not wanting to help, it's more because we can't remain commercial but still add value for the client. Yeah. So yeah, it's quite a tough one actually, and it's something that we do want to be able to fix, and we don't know how. I don't think the profession as a whole knows how quite yet. Maybe a move to more technology could help with that end of client, but the problem is people want to deal with people. They don't want to deal with technology, and we never want to confuse the fact that we are a technology business. We're not. We are all about people. We want our clients to know that the relationship is the most important thing to us. So it's difficult.
It's finding that. And, you know, in terms of then like your corporate social responsibility or what you provide to the community as a business, is that something you would ever do, is have like a little surgery for people that are struggling with their finances, that they can pop in and you do that like one day every 6 months, where people who don't have a lot of money but are struggling with finances can come in?
It's a great idea, and you know, it's something that we've done a couple of occasions in the past. We've maybe been down to some local schools, had some, you know, discussions or talks with the children, the students. But yeah, you know, that is the sort of thing that if we can give back to them, you know, and there would be value in that, then absolutely, you know, as I go back to the fact that we want to have a presence in the local community. Yeah. The local community is really important to us. You know, all of the directors, we're all born and bred in Inverness. We want to keep people here. We believe it's a place that provides opportunity and that should be thriving, and hopefully will continue to grow. So, you know, if there's things we can do that would genuinely add value, then yeah, we would absolutely do that.
And you have been doing that already, haven't you?
And we have, yeah, we have. We have done a few things, as I say, with schools. Yeah. Local charities, we're very big on supporting whatever we can, and we'll continue to do that. So if anyone has any ideas, we do actually have a section on our website where you can fill in a form and suggest these things. Yeah. So we'd be delighted to hear some suggestions if you do.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. So what does a typical day in the life look like for you at work then?
Since starting 57 North, there's now some additional responsibilities that maybe we didn't have to think about before. So in your financial planning role, it's just clients. Your diary, your work life centers around making their life easier. It's about arranging meetings with them to ensure that we are keeping in contact and that we are reviewing things regularly to ensure that clients remain on track. So if you have client meetings, you'll be prepping in advance of that meeting to make sure that everything is completed so that you can go in and make that time as meaningful as possible. I quite like leaving a little window after those meetings then to make sure we can write up our notes, and then if there's any immediate action or something urgent that needs to be looked at, we can try and get onto that as quickly as possible. But out with that, A lot of time it's research, it's making sure that we are aware and using the right solutions. And and this is where I am unashamed to say, technology, if the technology is harnessed to help us provide an improved service, then that's great. That's ultimately what we're trying to do at all times. So just making sure that our processes, policies, client interactions are as refined as they can be. But then on top of that, obviously, there now is the additional responsibilities of the business management and making sure that everything is remaining on track in that sense for us, so that we continue to be a suitable home for clients for hopefully the long term.
Yeah. And you've extended that staff since the three of you started last year. How many staff do you now have?
So there's now 10 staff. We have just had a new start this week, actually. So we had Roddy join the team on Monday yesterday. He thankfully came back in this morning, so it couldn't have been too bad of a first day. But it's a growing team. It's a team that have worked together for a long time, and we're very fortunate. When we go to work, it's a nice place to be. And I do truly believe that all of the staff would attest to that. I think it's a fun environment, but it's a serious environment, and we get things done for our clients. So it's a nice place to be.
And how did you make that transition from being an employee of a national, then multinational company to then having a director role? How have you found that transition?
Yeah, it's been a learning curve. I like to read, and you can read some books and you get a feel for maybe some of the additional challenges you would face if you were running your own business. But until you actually do it, there's definitely some things that you're not going to read, and you have to learn on the job as well. So it's been a learning curve. I think the main thing is, my view is, if you do right by other people, they'll generally always do right by you. And if you instill that across all your decision making, wherever you possibly can, then that will make you a good employer. That will make you feel like somebody can come to you if they have problems, they can be open. And so I think that's definitely been instilled across the whole business. But no, it's been a transition, and I'm constantly learning. But my view is, we never stop, and if we do feel we've stopped learning, then we're probably going backwards. So I hope it doesn't change.
What's been one book then that's been very helpful for you?
One of the books that I've read, it was by Gino Wickman. It's called Traction. It's all about, he developed and created this system called the entrepreneurial operating system. And it just talks about how you can build and maintain a strong functioning business. So it may be detail heavy, but it's a really good book. So I'd encourage anyone who's in business and does enjoy those types of books, it's worth a read. We were actually down at a conference in London just a few weeks ago, the other month, where again I was actually asked to do a talk, be part of one of the breakout sessions there, and Gino was actually presenting at the end of the conference, and that was fantastic. You walk away from listening to him speak for an hour feeling ultra motivated and just wanting to go out and do stuff. So
feel like you were meeting a hero.
Yeah, well, he's he's world renowned, and you can see why, because what he's done is impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you ever think then that you would be in this entrepreneurial position at the age of 28?
Truthfully, no, I don't think so. I believe that knowledge is power, and I think that you the more someone can learn, the more rounded they're going to be. As I say, I go back to the fact that I am so fortunate that I've been surrounded by great people all the way through my working career. Not just that, my friends and family network, I just feel like I'm an incredibly lucky guy. So all the way through, I've been able to learn off of other people who I have a huge amount of respect for. So I'd like to think that I've always, been driven and want to be successful. But at 28 in December, maybe I'm not in the position I thought I'd be. Maybe I'm a little bit ahead of the schedule, but just taking everything as it comes.
And what do you do to unwind, relax from this busy life in your 20s?
Friends and family. I'm, as I say, really, really fortunate to have a great friends and family network. I do like to try, in inverted commas, keep fit. I go to the gym. I quite like getting out and about. I play golf. Most of the time is spent socialising with friends and family. So, very, very lucky to have that network around me.
And my last question for you then is, in the last year and a bit since you started, What has been the biggest 3 things you have learned?
Whew. Geez, you should have given me this question before. Put me on the spot now.
Got time.
The biggest 3 things that I have learned. One of the biggest things has been not to get too tied into the highs and the lows. If you have a great day at work and then you feel amazing, and then if you maybe have a not so good day for whatever reason, then you feel rubbish. It's trying to disassociate and kind of step away and just realize that it's just part of the process, and it'll be sorted. Communication is just so important, making sure that everyone communicates openly and you feel you can go to people and they feel they can come to you. And I'd say probably the third thing is, don't be afraid of saying I don't know at this exact time, but what I promise you I'll do is go away and find out. And if I can't, I'll speak to whoever I need to speak to be able to find out. Because I think when you're honest with people, it's always received well. So yeah, I'd probably say those were 3 of the biggest things I've learned. But I mean, there's so many things that I've learned. Like, it's just been great. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and long may it continue.
The other thing I've learned as well is that I should really leave more time in my diary to do the column or the executive magazine post, so I don't have Daryl emailing me one day before saying, have you remembered that you need to provide this column for us? So yeah, I would definitely manage that time a little bit better.
Oh, me too. It's okay, he emails me too. Rachel's just done. I'm like, no.
Yeah, so apologies for that. I'll try my hardest for the next one.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Jake. It's been great to have you.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Executive Podcast. You can sign up to our free newsletter at hnmedia.co.uk/executive magazine. We partner with stakeholders to keep you up to date with everything that is happening across all sectors within the North of Scotland economy.